Most people think of Money as just another classic rock staple. But if you strip away the 50 years of fame, what you actually listen to is a bizarre, experimental middle finger to the music industry. Money interested me enormously. I remember thinking, well, this is it. I have to decide whether I'm really a socialist or not. By all logic, this song should have been a commercial disaster. In 1972, Roger Waters wasn't trying to write a hit. He was sitting in a shed at the bottom of his garden, surrounded by piles of loose change and a tape recorder. He had this idea.
The sounds walking around the room. It's always been a little bit of a frustration to me that Money was in 7/4 time, not 4/4 time, because if it had been 4/4, then the sounds could have literally walked around the room and never had to go back to the beginning of the loop again. But yeah, as you probably noticed, it jumps from back to front when it has to, because it's.
What if the rhythm of the song wasn't a drum kit, but the sound of capitalism itself? Today, if a producer wants a cash register sound, they just drag a digital file into a laptop. It takes 3 seconds. In 1972, Roger Waters had to build that sound by hand. It's Roger's riff. Roger came in with the verses and the lyrics for Money more or less completed. He spent hours dropping coins into his wife's mixing bowls. Roger and I constructed the tape loop for Money in our home studios, then took it in to Abbey Road. I had drilled holes in all pennies and threaded them onto strings. They gave one sound on the loop of 7. It took industrial scissors and tore up paper to mimic the sound of a check being ripped. We just gathered a few different sounds, dropping a bag of money on the table, throwing money in the air, tearing up paper to suggest tearing up the money. He even lugged a heavy mechanical adding machine into the room just to record the cluck, cluck, cluck of the gears.
The loop was quite difficult to achieve. It was.
Can you tell me about that?
We had the basic noises.
Yep.
Dropping a bag of money on a wooden floor.
But recording the sounds was the easy part. The real nightmare was the loop. Waters had to take the physical tape, a thin brown strip of plastic, and cut it with a razor blade. He had to measure it with a ruler.
We made all kinds of attempts to splice up this loop, and it just sounded horrible. The timing was all wrong, and we discovered that the only way to get it spot on timing-wise was to take a ruler and physically measure an exact length of tape, say 6 3/8 inches or whatever it was.
Since the song was in a 7-beat time signature, he needed 7 distinct sounds. He spliced them together with sticky tape to create a physical circle.
One of the sort of most iconic moments is the loop on Money. The opening, the intro. That was a lot of work. I mean, with Pro Tools and hard disk recording, piece of cake. Just cut out those sounds and make them into a loop. But we were talking about analog tape, and to get that loop sounding right was a lot of work.
If he cut 1 centimeter too short, the whole song would speed up. If it was too long, it would lag. It was less like songwriting and more like watchmaking. When Waters brought these loops into Abbey Road, the engineers thought he'd lost his mind. The loop was so long it couldn't sit on the machine. It would just sag and tangle.
It wasn't good enough just to take a sound, cut the tape, join the next sound, cut that tape.
Right.
We actually had to measure the exact length of the tape. Otherwise, it would have been out of rhythm. So that took some time, and then we ended up with a 1-inch tape, a 4-track loop of those sounds. It was 4-track because.
So they rigged a system that looked like a science experiment. They positioned mic stands around the studio floor and threaded the tape out of the machine, around a stand across the room, around another by the door, and then back in.
And then we combined the 7 sounds into a continuous loop and put a few mic stands up to support the tape going around on this 4-track machine. Then it got transferred from 4-track to the master 16-track, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon was 16 track, believe it or not 24 track.
As the band played, this giant loop of tape was physically spinning through the air. If someone had tripped over a chord or sneezed too hard, the masterpiece would have snapped instantly. You're trying to get the impact from the cash register, the snap, crack, ksh. You'd mark that one, measure how long you wanted that beat to go, and that's the piece you'd use, and you'd chop it together. It was trial and error. There was no undo button, just a thin piece of plastic holding the whole session together. Now let's talk about that rhythm. In Western music, we like things in fours. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's how we walk and how we dance. Waters decided money should be in 7/4. To a listener, 7/4 feels like a chair with one leg shorter than the others. It's a limp. Just when your brain expects the beat to reset, the song just keeps going. Occasionally, I would do things and they would say, "No, that's wrong. There should be another beat. That's only 7." I'd say, "Well, that's how it is." When you play Money on an acoustic guitar, it's very much a blues thing. The rest of Pink Floyd hated it at first. Nick Mason, the drummer, found it infuriating. He had to train his brain to ignore every instinct he had to find a groove in a signature that was actively trying to trip him up.
We were anticipating a quadraphonic release. Quadraphonic was 1972. Quadraphonic was the new buzzword, and so a lot of the sounds were geared towards quadraphonic. So we made that loop. Each one of the sounds walk around the room.
Label executives told them to kill it. They say DJs wouldn't play it and people couldn't dance to it. But Waters knew the limp was the whole point. He wanted the music to feel as unstable as the greed he was singing about. He only let the band relax into a normal beat during the guitar solo. It's the only part of the song that feels right, which is why it hits so hard. It's a moment of relief before you're dragged back into the grind.
So the only way to get it to sound correct rhythmically was to measure the tape with a ruler.
Okay.
So it'd be like each sound was 6 7/8 inches, and measure that, do the splice, get to the next sound, do that splice.
The irony is almost too perfect. Waters wrote a song mocking the corrupting power of wealth, and it became the biggest cash cow in the history of progressive rock. He didn't hide the joke, he made the cash register the star of the show. Despite the weird rhythm and the 6-minute length, Money exploded. We didn't think anything would happen with Money, and suddenly it just did. It stayed on the charts for over 700 weeks. That's 14 years. People were still buying this record in the mid-80s because of a sound Roger Waters made with a tin of coins in his garden. It proved that audiences are a lot smarter than the executives think. They didn't care that they couldn't dance to it. They cared that it sounded like nothing else on earth. In the end, that 7/4 rhythm wasn't just a gimmick, it was a promotion. The limp in the song reflected the limp in the band's relationship. Eventually, the arguments over money and ownership would tear them apart. The idea was that each part of the cash register would emanate from a different speaker. Lots of time was spent recording each segment of the sound effect on discrete channels. But for those few minutes in 1972, everything aligned. One guy, a tin of change, and a tape loop that was almost too long to handle. Next time you hear that cha-ching on the radio, remember the mic stands, the razor blades, and the man in the garden who decided that the best way to top the charts was to break every single rule. If you like a video like this one, and we have many others on our channel, please drop a comment, give an idea for a new video, because there's always something else we can talk about in rock music.